we're living in a world where we don't know how we should feel because we're not sure what they meant. So like, man, what did Kurt mean when he said that?
Yeah.
You know, like what did he what did he mean when he laughed like that? Or she laughed like that. So sometimes we're in our feelings just because we're not clear. And what happens, man, all kind of imaginations just start running through the brain.
Yes.
What they really meant is that they don't like the way you and what they really meant was, you think you're all that. What they and we start, man, adding interpretation to something that really may not have been intended that way.
Wow.
And so that's why you gotta process it so that you kind of say, all right, we need to address that. Because I realize I'm feeling a certain way based upon maybe an assumption or confusion, about certain things. Or you got to process it so that you can actually say, you know what, I'm actually offended. Because you know what, our initial instinct sometimes say, you know what, I ain't going to even let that bother me. I'm just going to let that, kind of wash right off to me like water off a duck's back. But man, guess what? It's been 2-3 weeks, or 2-3 months. And
I'm offended.
You still got kind of something stirring in you
Yeah.
whenever you see that person or wherever you're in their space. And it's simply because you didn't really process it long enough to say, well, you know what? I actually am offended.
Life can be fast-paced, strenuous, and flat-out overwhelming. Life transitions and taboo topics can make it hard to catch your breath. Welcome to Breathe, a podcast that enables you to slow down, get your bearings, and engage in real conversations where no topic is off limits. Breathe is presented by Breath of Life, hosted by David Person and speaker-director Pastor Deblier Snell.
Boom!
Let's go.
All right.
Let's go.
Here,
All right.
Here we go. Here we go. Welcome to Breathe.
It's March, man.
It's March now.
We in it.
Yeah.
March
And
Madness, baby. March Madness.
No, it's a marvelous March.
Marvelous March.
Marvelous
I
March.
like
March.
that better.
There we
I
go.
like that better. I like that better.
Marvelous March.
Yeah, marvelous March.
Come on.
I like
Marvelous
that
March.
better.
Yeah.
Welcome to Breathe. We are still in this thing, fully pumped up about new normals.
New normals.
New normals.
Yeah.
Love it.
And you already know that this is the book we've been using. I'm sure many of you have already purchased it and are going through it, and we thank you for taking this journey with us.
Absolutely.
So last week we talked about politeness, making that a new normal. Now this week, it may seem like we are going in the opposite direction, but we're not.
Right. Correct.
We're talking about doing something that is healthy, and that's making confrontation
Normal.
Yes.
Man, that's good.
Yeah, that's heavy.
It's a big spot.
It
you know,
is.
just because man, people just leave things unresolved. Just don't touch it.
Yeah.
Just avoid it
Tiptoeing around
altogether.
issues, yeah.
Got a big elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying anything.
People, and that can be really damaging to
Yeah.
families,
Yep.
to work
Good night.
relationships,
Yep.
to romantic relationships. So let's get into
Yeah,
it.
man.
Now, I think the tendency is to see confrontation as a negative thing.
Yeah.
Has a negative connotation.
Yeah.
But you're suggesting it's not only a positive or should be used in a positive way, but it also is biblical.
Yeah, correct. And I think if we could maybe take some of the tension out of it, well, twofold. I think you have some of it's personality specific.
True.
So I just think you have some people that are just a little more innately There's some people that are just a little bit more innately confrontation averse.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
True.
Where there's some,
Yeah.
they can
Confrontation
operate in that
averse.
space, a little bit more comfortably than others. So, I do want to say that. But I just think, Matthew kind of 18, Jesus laid out this beautiful principle. He says, if someone offends you, he's like, confront him. Like, that's the strategy.
That's it.
He says, go and tell it between you and him alone. Like, that's the word.
Done.
And then he actually creates, man, like a strategy for a community confrontation, especially, this is talking about in the church context. You kind of go with 2 or 3 witnesses so that the conversation may be established there. And then, of course, there is, an extreme version where you kind of bring it and make it a matter of, just the entire church. But honestly, this has been my lived experience. is that like when there is especially in the church context specifically, when there is a timely, spirit-led, one-on-one confrontation, the 2-3, it never even gets to that.
Okay.
And it's never really gotten to a matter where I got to bring in the whole church community, in order for that to take place. But because what happens is we will avoid that first step that Jesus laid out. What happens is now, and let me just say this, first point of confrontation, go and tell it between you and the person alone.
Alone.
So you know what we do when we get offended or somebody offends us? We go tell it
Somebody
to
else.
everybody
That's right.
but the person that confronted us.
Absolutely.
And what we would rather do is create an alliance of people that join in our frustration against the person that harmed us, instead of actually draining kind of the toxin from the offense by actually confronting the person individually.
Yeah.
And so I just think that, we just got to understand confrontation is biblical, but the only reason it's biblical is because it gives us a relational upper hand. So that everything that Christ lays out, none of it is arbitrary. None of it is designed to just operate in a vacuum of righteousness. No, he's actually saying this is the path to relational wellness. This is what is going to create the win for you. And I just think the other thing, so when we say we look at confrontation as a negative, remember, there's always a huge difference between being confrontational and being combative. Those are
Not the same.
two different things.
Wow.
Being confrontational just means I want to address the matter.
Yes.
Being
Yes,
combative really speaks to the spirit and the energy.
Going on the attack.
Right, going on the
Mercy.
attack.
Yeah.
But when that's not really the end goal or the right result of confrontation.
And there are those who are naturally combative.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And some are naturally combative.
Yes.
Correct.
I
They
like
live
the
for it.
word,
They
I
live
like the
for it.
word you used, though, Pastor Snell. You said to address it. I think if we thought about it more that way, there'd be less, there might be less apprehension, or it might be at least reduced or minimized a little bit.
Correct.
Apprehension. I'm going to address this. But to do that, to address it and to not become combative, we then, I think, have to figure out how to separate or process our emotions.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times that's what's at the center, right? You're feeling something inside.
Yeah.
And you may, and so you feel like, well, I really want to be combative.
Yeah.
But I know that from a spiritual standpoint, or even a strategic standpoint,
Yeah.
I don't need to be combative.
Yeah.
So how do I do this?
But can I go back to something? And so you talked about the need to process your emotion to even come to conclusion or clarity about how you actually feel.
Yeah.
Because there are
that's good.
times where we're living in a world where we don't know how we should feel because we're not sure what they meant. So like, man, what did Kurt mean when he said that?
Yeah.
What did he mean when he laughed like that? Or she laughed like that. So sometimes we're in our feelings just because we're not clear. And what happens, man, all kind of imaginations just start running through the brain. What they really meant is that they don't like the way you, and what they really meant was, you think you're all that. What they and we start, man, adding interpretation to something that really may not have been intended that way. And so that's why you gotta process it so that you kind of say, all right, we need to address that, because I realize I'm feeling a certain way based upon maybe an assumption or confusion, about certain things. Or you got to process it so that you can actually say, you know what, I'm actually offended. Because you know what, our initial instinct sometimes say, I ain't going to even let that bother me. I'm just going to let that, kind of wash right off to me like water off a duck's back. But man, guess what? It's been 2-3 weeks, or 2-3 months. And
I'm offended.
You still got kind of something stirring in you
Yeah.
whenever you see that person or wherever you're in their space. And it's simply because you didn't really process it long enough to say, well, you know what? I actually am offended.
Mercy.
I'm not over this. It is still bothering me. And so I need to address it.
Yeah.
So, I do think that processing is critical.
Absolutely. No, I was thinking through from the perspective of you gave two words there. When you go as just the two of you, and you have that spirit-led conversation, it sometimes doesn't even get to anything else. But the challenge is do we go with a spirit-led?
Oh, Lord have mercy. That's a whole nother episode right there.
Are we looking to go with a spirit-led conversation? I think the reason why confrontation is viewed as combative.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why society has conflated those two terms is because we're not looking to do spirit.
Right. Yeah.
And we're not looking to get clarity. We don't even come with a clarifying question.
Yeah.
We come to accuse.
We come with an indictment.
That's it.
Yeah.
Boom. And we've called them guilty.
We have a preconceived notion.
Done.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's based on ego.
Exactly.
And then we
a
go
lot
in,
of time it's based on ego.
And then we go
That's
in
it.
for the attack.
That's it.
I thought about James chapter 1, verses 19, where James says, remember this, my dear brothers, let everyone be quick to listen.
Yeah.
Quick to listen.
That's a word.
Slow to speak.
Slow to speak.
Woo.
And slow to become angry.
Lord have mercy. You stepping all over us today.
He gave us the cheat code.
He did. Yeah.
He gave us a cheat code. That was it right there.
That's it.
But I mean, it's so funny because our instinct is the exact opposite. It is to be quick to become angry, quick to speak.
Oh yeah,
and maybe to not even listen at all. So
man.
I mean, I just think, man,
complete opposite. Wow,
our overall relational wellness would look radically different if we made James 1:19 a normal. If that was if we practiced it enough to where it became the reflex. But that's a lot of practice, and that's a lot of intentionality.
And I think we have to be, I'll say, patient or gentle with ourselves, especially if we have not been in the habit of doing that, because it takes some. You gotta move into that thing spiritually.
Yep.
And you may not get it right all the time.
Yeah.
But that ought to be the objective, though.
Yeah.
I know we're going a certain direction. I want to kind of bring in something that I see in the younger generation.
Okay.
Because, confrontation, right?
Yep.
Back in my day, we would say stuff to one another.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, zippers down. Hey, my guy, you probably needed to double up on the deodorant this morning. Like we would say those things.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not doing that.
Yeah.
They're not doing that.
Okay.
They're not doing that. And I think it's fruit of the same tree of this. Well, I just didn't want to. I've actually asked my son that very question. Like, did you smell your boy? He's like, yeah. Did you say something to him? No, I didn't want to say anything to him. I don't want to. I didn't want. I don't know where it comes from. Didn't want to hurt his feelings. Don't want to confront. Don't want to. I don't know where it comes from. But they're back in our. Am I wrong?
Oh, no,
back
no,
in
no,
our
no,
day.
no.
Oh yeah, it'd be like, hey, bro, when's the last time you got that haircut? I mean, nigga, tighten up.
But
a
I
little
do think, to a certain extent, I do think you have a group. And I don't want to typecast all young people, but I just think culturally, anybody that kind of confronts or gives us maybe some reproof, we tend to automatically label them a hater. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of the fruit, I think, of. I think that's the overarching fruit of that. Yeah. Anybody that corrects me, challenges my thinking,
right?
That may kind of, I automatically label them an enemy, a hater, somebody that is not for my best interest. But really, that's your boy right there.
Boy.
I mean, kind of, if you're out and about and you're ripe. You
Come
know
on.
what I'm saying? Like that's what your boy.
That's what your boy's
that's
supposed
love
to do.
does.
Yeah.
That's what love. That's how love functions.
We're not letting you go
so,
like that, bro.
Yeah. So I just think that's one of the fruits of that culture where just anybody that doesn't just agree, anybody that's not just complicit in everything I say, do, or think is a hater, and that's not a good thing.
And I think people are afraid too of they're afraid of the reaction.
Yeah,
they're afraid that somebody's going to reject them or attack them when all they really intended was to do something that was right.
Right.
And that should be perceived as helpful.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you do with that. What did how did that conversation go with your son? I'm curious.
He disagreed with me completely. He was just like, no, we don't do that.
Yeah,
I would not do that. I'm just like, man, and I'm looking at it from your perspective. Like, if that's my boy,
yeah.
Oh no,
I'm trying to help him out.
I'm trying to help him out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you? Are your sons or your daughter, are they pretty much the same way, do you think? Or
I resonate with what he's saying, and so that's what I'm kind of. So what I was trying to figure out, I was like, I kind of felt like that's how we moved
Back in
as
the day.
younger people.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's just a tentativeness, more like, man. So I'll say something to my daughter, like, yo, I don't want to hurt her feelings.
Boom.
Like that's kind of the belief
Boom.
that
I-
truth
that's
or
it.
suggestions that's going to hurt them or harm them. And so what I'm trying to figure out, and I thought maybe this is just, it's funny as I'm listening to you talk, I thought this is just kind of the personality of my kids, and that maybe they're taking on a little bit maybe more of Gianna's personality, a little less of mine, whereas mine is a little bit more clear, a little bit more direct. So
my son is in his 30s now, so I haven't even had an occasion to even ask or wonder about that. But now you kind of got me wondering.
Yeah.
I wonder how his age group
acts.
that.
Yeah. That's a good question. Just kind of look at it from the different levels. But I've just noticed that with at least my kids' age, and they're around Pastor Snell's kids' age as well. Just there's a reticence to really touch things.
Yeah.
I still look at it from the perspective of confrontation.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of brought it up, because I do think that our concept of confrontation, if you were to take, maybe if we were to use the term address privately in love, I don't know. Maybe it's the term confrontation that some people just kind of they've put it in with combative.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like there are certain things that we should be able to touch.
But I just think the overarching thing with confrontation is that any relationship that you value,
boom,
there's just got to be a confrontation rhythm to it. And honestly, this is, you know what makes confrontation 10 times harder than it needs to be?
What's that?
Is not doing it in season. Like the longer you wait to address certain things.
Sure.
So I think even the book of Ephesians talks about, not going to bed while we're angry or letting the sun go down on the wrath. We only tend to put that in a marriage context, but that's not really the context in which it was written. It's just talking as the family of God and how we operate with one another.
Yeah.
But honestly, I just think confrontation, it doesn't really get easier with times. It gets more awkward the more the resentment builds. And the more the resentment builds, the more you inflate, the intention, the more the offense gets bigger.
Yeah.
The longer you carry it without addressing the matter, and the longer you begin to assign intentions to the person who did it, and you think they're somewhere laughing at you and thinking you're weak and this and that, or just thinking that they are aware.
Mercy.
Assuming they're acutely aware of what's happening and that they did it on purpose and they just chose not to apologize, so on and so forth. When sometimes there are just some things where, whether it's me or somebody's just operating in their blind spot, they just weren't clear how that came across. It wasn't obvious to them how that was going to impact you. And sometimes there just needs to be a timely confrontation. So I just think the sooner you do it, it actually makes it a little bit easier. And it keeps all of those walls from going up and all of those intentions to being assigned or misinterpretations or just a resentment that actually has changed the way you view or feel about that person.
I know we're trying to land, but as you're talking, all that came to mind is, politically the right and the left, and how entrenched we've become on either side. It almost feels like, man, maybe we should have just had the conversation way back when. But there used to be a time where people understood that you believed something slightly different, and they still had a mutual respect for one another. But it has kind of devolved to what honestly, we make them out to be monsters, whatever side you're on. And so, that confrontation piece, I think we really need to have a healthy diet of that and rhythm of that in our lives so that it doesn't get out of control and doesn't get entrenched.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Reverend Dr. Jesse Jackson, who died last month. And I noticed that, to your point, Pastor Nugent, I noticed that not only was he being lauded by Democrats,
Agreed.
but there were Republicans who were coming out and saying, I didn't agree with his politics and I didn't like everything he said or did, but what an amazing life this guy lived, or what an amazing person he was at this certain moment.
Look at that.
And I think you're right. There was a time, And I'll admit, as somebody who also is very active and operational in the political space professionally, I will admit that there are times when we can get a little bit out of hand. You know, and I've been party to some of that. I have to confess. But I also can honestly say that there are people who are Republicans and conservatives, because I'm not those things. Republicans and conservatives that I have respected.
There it is.
And continue to respect, even if I don't agree with their politics.
And you seek audience with them. Because sometimes just having a conversation with them and hearing it from their perspective, it's not going to change your mind, but it gives you deeper insight into why they hold some of their views. And yeah, again, it doesn't necessarily shift your, but having those kinds of conversations sometimes rounds out your own beliefs and allows you to walk in different spaces a little bit better.
And that's what I was going to say. And I think that's why it's even some of those confrontations, because what we've kind of done is just kind of agreed, let's just not talk about it. You all stay over there. We'll stay over here. But honestly, there have been some people who hold a certain view of things. And honestly, a confrontational conversation about those views is really what softens. Because there are just certain things that can't stand up to scrutiny. So when you're just operating in a space of agreement, it's just reinforced.
In an echo chamber.
But like honestly, when you have to kind of really sit and answer questions or be asked questions, you know, whether it is their belief or whether it's yours, you realize there's just certain things that can't withstand challenge or scrutiny. And I'm not talking about a shouting match, but just kind of like, really? You think that, and you think that aligns with scripture, really? But doesn't, you know, so that back and forth, actually, that confrontation, it can be a mutually growing dialogue. And I just think more of it is helpful, at least where you have an honest, an emotionally honest broker that you're looking to deal with.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
So we're talking about confrontation, but not combative confrontation.
There you go.
We're talking about a spiritually engaged form of confrontation where you are addressing issues, even following the directives of the Bible to do it in a certain way first, you know, one-on-one, and then if necessary, bringing other people into it, and also being quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger.
That's good.
Creating new normals, y'all. That's what we're trying to do for 2026. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and I hope and pray that you will, when it comes to confrontations that need to be had in your life with loved ones, family members, co-workers, in church, whatever the case may be, that you will stop. Pray.
That's good.
And breathe.
Breathe is produced by David Person for Breath of Life. Executive producer is Debliere Snell, and sound engineer is Kirk Nugent. Audio episodes of Breathe can be found on Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcast platforms. For video episodes and extra content, check out the Breath of Life YouTube channel. Breath of Life is faith-based content, resources, and programs from a contemporary urban perspective for those looking for hope and guidance. We believe that every breath we take is a testimony that God is consistent, that He loves us, and has a plan for our lives.